My name is Dara Dietz, and let's talk a little bit about natural healing first aid. What we can do in emergencies to support a victim to clear conditions that could end us up in the emergency room if we don't know what to do. When you have a condition of food poisoning or the flu, stomach flu, anything where there is vomiting and diarrhea going on, you would want to have the intestinal number 2 formula. This is the first thing that you reach for, regardless of whether it is vomiting or diarrhea or both. If the waste that is coming out is liquid, an adult dose would be a tablespoon episodally. So when it happens, you use a tablespoon of the intestinal number 2 formula. This formula has your bentonite clay, your charcoal, some psyllium seed and husk powders, the nutrients that are needed to help conciliate and bind the bowel up and absorb the toxins. For the vomiting, the bentonite clay and charcoal will absorb the acidity and the bacteria in the tummy that is causing the tummy to want to vomit. Use a tablespoon of the lower bowel formula number 2 in 12 to 16 ounces of water. It will need to be shaken. It cannot be stirred. It doesn't stir well. Shake this in that, drink it right down, just glug it down. For the liquid diarrhea, it will normally conciliate the bowel in just a few minutes. For the vomiting, it will usually come back up, but hold it down as long as possible. When it does come up, it will be like applesauce, which is a lot nicer than what you've been throwing up, the bile. And it will have absorbed the bacteria and the acidity in the stomach. So once this comes back up, or in cases of some, like my husband, he just holds it down. It just stops the vomiting and he never comes back up with it. It just passes through. Most people will vomit it back up, and once it comes up or settles, it's basically taken care of. When it comes back up, then go ahead and use a good strong herb to settle the stomach. Ginger root, an ounce of juiced ginger root, is one of the strongest things to settle an upset tummy that is out there. If you have the LP and digestive tonic, a teaspoon of each of those is excellent for settling the tummy and just clearing out anything going on. I just love those two together. It is one of the most powerful things that I've ever seen to settle an upset tummy. The digestive tonic by itself, it has the peppermint and the ginger, which works quite well by itself. Combined with the LP formula, it's even more powerful. But if you just have that by itself, that will work very well. If you have none of these things, a good strong cup of peppermint tea will be very useful and often can do the job. Any of these things will then settle the tummy and just allow everything just to pass on through and settle down. If they continue to have bouts of diarrhea, use a teaspoon for crampy waste where it's not watery but it's just crampy and coming through. Or if the tummy's just griping and it's just crampy in there, a teaspoon of intestinal number 2 in 6 to 8 ounces of water will quite often clear that in just a few minutes. If they're passing water from the bowel still, use a tablespoon of intestinal number 2 episodally whenever they have an episode. That is when you give it. So that would be how you deal with vomiting and diarrhea naturally. And I have seen this procedure work on myself with serious food poisoning. I ended up going through nearly a whole 8-ounce jar of the intestinal number 2 one night after I got some serious food poisoning. And by morning it had finally congealed the bowel, and I passed solid waste, and there was absolutely no repercussions. It was over. I didn't even need in that case to use additional of the number 1 formula, which helps the peristalsis move better. I didn't need to increase that to get the number 2 through. It had been so loose in there that it just finished up and got whatever was in there, bacteria, poison, whatever it was that I'd gotten, it got it out. And there was no need for any support beyond once it conciliated. So after that night of work, I concluded that you cannot overdose on the intestinal number 2 in a crisis. You can use too much of it on a regular basis and form a brick in your gut, because it is very binding. And when you're using it for cleansing, you want to make sure you're using enough of the intestinal number 1s to make sure it passes through. But in the case of diarrhea and food poisoning, things like this, it does tend to pass through pretty good by itself. If it doesn't, just use a few extra number 1s and get the bowels back up to what they need to be.